3rd, and I call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. We do have someone that signed up for our public comment period pursuant to Council Rule 28 and state law. Public comment is limited to matters that are about items on this agenda. You may only speak about items that appear on the agenda. We do have Steve Ryder speaking on RS 2024-490 in support. Mr. Ryder, you are recognized. Oh, colleagues, please make sure to put up your committee member signs if you're on the Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you so much. Mr. Ryder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. I strongly support the resolution for the Strobel Center. We're in dire need of extremely low-income housing opportunities. The original plan had $25 million in general obligation bonds, but that was passed by the council some time ago. So I'm really disappointed that it's taken so long to get to this point. We originally promised a minimum of 100 units, but we're only getting 90. So I think that probably could have been handled a little better by the project management team. I have a concern that Metro wants to contract with an out-of-state entity for property management and related services. I would really prefer to have a local service provider doing that job. But I understand why they're probably hesitant. There is a service provider there's some ongoing litigation right now with a service provider, and the plaintiff is asking for millions of dollars, millions. And that's more than what most nonprofits can really handle. So I'm respectfully requesting, with regards to the Strobel Center, since it's Metro-owned property, to put an indemnity clause in there. Indemnity clause would prevent somebody suing for millions of dollars. It's Metro-owned property. The Government Tort Liabilities Act, I think, limits it to like $300,000 or $400,000. I think we could get a local service provider if there were some guarantees and assurances in that regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ryder. And now we will go ahead and go into the consent agenda. We have the following items on the consent agenda: RS 2024-480, RS 2024-481, RS 2024-485, RS 2024-487, RS 2024-488, RS 2024-489, RS 2024-493, RS 2024-494, RS 2024-495, RS 2024-496, RS 2024-497, RS 2024-498, RS 2024-499, RS 2024-500, RS 2024-501, RS 2024-502, RS 2024-503, RS 2024-504, RS 2024-505, RS 2024-506, RS 2024-507, RS 2024-508, RS 2024-510, RS 2024-511, RS 2024-512, RS 2024-513, RS 2024-514, RS 2024-515, RS 2024-516, RS 2024-517, RS 2024-518, BL 2024-377, BL 2024-378, BL 2024-379, and BL 2024-380. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could take RS 2024-481, 486, 498, 500, and 514, just to ask questions.
So that is 91, 98, 500, and 514.
481,
81,
486, 486, 498, 500, and 514.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. Do we have anyone else? I haven't read the captions yet. I'm just on the numbers right now. Is there anything else that anyone wants to pull off consent? All right. So the items that we will consider for consent are RS 2024-480 Porterfield, Welsh, and Allen accepts a grant to the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Davidson County General Services Sessions Court, to provide the Tennessee Mental Health Court programs to include intensive court supervision, mental health treatment services, drug testing, and substance abuse treatment services as an alternative to incarceration. RS 2024-485 Porterfield authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro government property damage claim against Design Blasting Services, LLC, in the amount of $295,000. RS 2024-487 Horton Porterfield Gamble approves the First Amendment to the lease agreement between the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority for use of the property commonly known as the John C. Toon Airport for their development and construction of an aircraft hangar. RS 2024-488 Gamble Sepulveda Porterfield and others amends RS 2022-1830, which appropriated $7,890,153,000 in the American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Urban League of Middle Tennessee and Nashville State Community College to extend the program term and approve Nashville State Community College's grant spending plan revision. RS 2024-489 Sepulveda Gamble Porterfield and others amend substitute resolution RS 2023-2143, which appropriated $471,694 in American Rescue Plan Act funds to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Middle Tennessee in partnership with the Tennessee State University to extend the project program through December 31st, 2024. RS 2024-493, Vote Porterfield Styles approves amendments to two agreements relating to the acquisition of parcel of property and improvements located at 607 Bass Street. RS 2024-494, Porterfield and Bradford accepts the terms of a cooperative purchase and master agreement for cellular services and equipment for the Information Technology Services Department. RS 2024-495, Porterfield Evans approves a contract between the Metropolitan Government and Oklahoma State University, DBA Fire Protection Publications to provide international fire service training, association training materials in print and digital form for the Nashville Fire Department. RS 2024-496, Porterfield authorizes the Metro Department allowed to compromise and settle a personal injury claim of Stephen Pimentel against the Metro government in the amount of $38,000, and that said amount to be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. RS 2024-497, Porterfield, Evans, Walsh, and others accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide the Tennessee Breast and Cervical Screening Program to offer individualized assistance to clients and to facilitate timely access to quality screenings and diagnostics. RS 2024-499, Porterfield, Evans, Walsh, and Allen accepts a grant from the National Association of County and City Health Officials to the Metro Board of Health for Youth and Community Violence Prevention Action Teams to support new and or existing youth and community violence prevention. RS 2024-501, Porterfield Evans amends RS 2024-213 to correct an error in the description of a grant from the Centers of Disease Control Control and Prevention to the Metro Board of Health. RS 2024-502, Porterfield, Evans, and Welsh approves amendments 3 and 4 to the Community Health Workers for Public Health Response and Resilient Grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metro Board of Health to address COVID-19 health disparities in the national area. RS 2024-503, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others approves Amendment 1 to the grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to improve the health of the citizens of Davidson County by preventing and controlling the use of tobacco and tobacco products. RS 2024-504, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others accept a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metro Board of Health to provide funding for emergency medical care, the Safety Net Program, the Foster Program, and the Rabies Clinic for shelter animals. RS 2024-505, Porterfield authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the Metro government against the estate of Francis Faye Mashburn in the amount of $35,000, and that said amount be paid into the Animal Control Donations Fund. RS 2024-506, Porterfield, Styles, Walsh, and others appropriates $20,840 from the National Public Library to various nonprofit organizations for the provision of free and high-quality enrichment activities and or field trips for youth during summer programming through the library's Nashville After Zone Alliance out-of-school time coordinating system. RS 2024-507, Porterfield, Styles, Walsh, and others appropriate $64,265 to increase the individual grant amounts and amend grant contracts from the National Public Library to specific nonprofit organizations for the provision of free and high-quality enrichment activities and or field trips for youth during summer programming through the library's Nashville After Zone Alliance After School Time Coordinating System. RS 2024-508, CAP Porterfield Styles approves an amendment to a participation agreement between the Metro government and Tennessee Golf Foundation concerning the renovations of 2 golf courses in Shelby Park. RS 2024-510, Porterfield Evans accepts the terms of a cooperative purchase and master agreement for the motorcycle, headset equipment, and related public safety products for Metro Nashville Police Department. RS 2024-511, Porterfield Parker approves a sole source contract between the Metro government and Temple Inc. to provide Carmana traffic control devices, products, equipment, and parts at a 10% discount. RS 2024-512, Kimbrough, Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure for the maintenance and operation of traffic safety improvements installed by TDOT on State Route 12 at Old Hickory Boulevard. RS 2024-513, Porterfield, Parker, Welsh, and others approves an application for a Healthy Built Environment grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure to assist in funding the Antioch Pike Tactile Urbanism Project to facilitate pedestrian safety, social interaction, and improve streetscapes. RS 2024-515, Porterfield, Parker approves a contract between the Metropolitan Government and Van Brocklin and Associates Incorporated for the provision of Franklin Miller parts and labor. RS 2024-516, Webb Porterfield Parker authorizes the Metro government to enter into an agreement with the City of Goodlettsville for Metro's reading of water consumption meters and for disconnecting and reconnecting water services to Goodlettsville's sewer customers. RS 2024-517, Porterfield Parker authorizes the Metropolitan Government to enter into an agreement with the White House Utility District for the district's reading of water consumption meters for disconnecting and reconnecting water service. RS 2024-518, Porterfield authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle personal injury claim of Cameron Armstrong against the Metro Government in the amount of $10,750,000, and that said amount being paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. BL 2024-377, Coupon Porterfield Gamble approves a lease agreement between the Metro Government and Trimac 401 Church Property Owner LLC for office space at 401 Church Street, Nashville, Tennessee. BL 2024-378, Porterfield Evans grants the person agent the authority to extend the term of contract number 458569 for the Fire Emergency Medical Services Billing and Collecting Contract. BL 2024-379, Porterfield Evans Ellis approves an agreement between Bethel University and the Metro Nashville Police Department to provide a reduced tuition rates to qualifying MNPD employees enrolling in Bethel's online degree programs. BL 2024-580, Porterfield, Evans, Walsh, and others approves an agreement between the Nashville Police Activities League and the Nashville Police Department to develop extracurricular activities for at-risk youth. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull off the consent agenda? Council Lady Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know if these are already pulled already. My apologies for that. But if you will pull 487, 493, 498, 499, I believe 501.
What was before 99, Council Lady Soror? Can you go over that list again?
498.
What, can you start from the beginning?
Yes, ma'am. 487, 493, 498, 499, 501. And I'm trying to find the one for that PAL program, and I can't find it.
The PAL program was
Yes,
BL 2024, 380, number 50 on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am, and that one as well, please.
Okay. Thank you, Council Lady Soror. Is there anything that anyone else would like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or not voting? Motion carries, and my apologies, I did not see how many people we had today, so let me do a quick 12, okay? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. The first item not on the consent agenda is BL 2024-373, Porterfield, a bill to be entitled The Budget Ordinance of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, Tennessee for fiscal year 2025. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? This will need to be re-referred back to the Budget and Finance Committee. So if we could get an amended motion to re-refer this back to Budget. Council Lady Evan Siegel. It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? All right, that motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next, we have BL 2024-389, Porterfield adopts the 2024-2025 through 2029 to 2030 capital improvements budget for the Metropolitan Government as the official capital improvements budget for fiscal year 2024 to 2025. This will also need to be re-referred to budget before we get a motion. Can I get a motion? Council Lady Allen.
Move approval with the re-referral.
Thank you. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item we have that was not on the consent agenda is RS 2024-481, Porterfield Wilson Allen accepts a Tennessee Certified Recovery Court Program grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Metro State Trial Courts to provide treatment services to nonviolent offenders, including intensive court supervision, mandatory drug testing, substance use treatment services, and other social services as an alternative to incarceration. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're all very familiar with the mental health courts that we have in general sessions. And I'm just wondering if, I would just like to know if state trial courts has the same type of program and how many people are served or would be served by this.
Thank you so very much, Council Lady Allen. Do we have someone here that can answer that? Anyone here from state trial court? Would anyone from the administration like to take a stab? Unfortunately, we do not have anyone here that can answer that question. Would you like to defer that, Councilor? Would you like to defer the legislation, Council Lady?
I would be willing to see if we get that information by tomorrow. And if not, then we could defer it tomorrow on the floor.
It's your call, Council Lady.
Is there someone I can ask to see if we can find that information? Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item we have is RS 2024-482 adopts a new pay plan for the general employees of the Metro government, excluded employees of the Board of Health, Board of Education, and the Police and Fire Departments effective July 1st, 2024. This will need to be deferred until June 18th before we get a motion. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Would anyone like to move that deferral? It has been, thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? One meeting deferral until June 18th. Passes 12 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. The next item will also need to be deferred until June 18th. RS 2024-483, Porterfield, Bradford, and Evans adopts a new pay plan for employees of the Metropolitan Departments of Police and Fire effective July 1st, 2024. Council Lady Allen.
I don't know if I need to make a motion and then ask a question. Okay, I'm moving approval, which we can come back and change to a deferral.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Just a procedural question, because we are contemplating changing this 3.5% COLA to a 4% COLA in essence. How does that amendment process work on the pay plan?
Director Darby, you're recognized.
The change to the COLA will be a change to the budget ordinance and a line item in the operating section of the budget ordinance.
Thank you. And so when we adopt this pay plan, it's got the 3.5% baked into it already?
There may be an amendment coming to the pay plan.
That'll just happen at this, be ready to go if we need it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. Do we have any other questions or discussion? Council Lady Allen, would you like to be recognized?
I'll just move for one meeting deferral
Thank you. Is there a second?
and re-referral.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And for clarity, because these are being deferred, they will automatically come back to budget. The next item will also need to be deferred until June 18th. RS 2024-484, Porterfield, Bradford, Evans adopts a new pay plan for employees of the Metro Board of Health effective July 1st, 2024. Can I get a motion? I got a motion to defer one meeting. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item that was not on consent is RS 2024-486, Porterfield Evans Welsh approves a sole source contract between the Metro Action Commission and UTJ Holdco Incorporated, doing business as Teaching Strategies LLC for the provision of research-based birth through kindergarten educational assessment software. This is being withdrawn. The next item that's on the agenda that was not on consent is RS 2024-487, Horton Porterfield Gamble approves the First Amendment to the lease agreement between the Metro Nashville Airport Authority for use of the property commonly known as the John C. Toon Airport for the development and construction of an aircraft hangar. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Swear, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, just for conversation and for clarification. What departments or what entity used the hangar other than the airport? The one that we're constructing?
The airport authority is here, and we will allow them to be recognized. And it looks like Chief Gilder was also walking up. He may also want to be recognized. So, Chief Gilder, come on down. Dun, 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 dun. If you could introduce yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Madam Chair, council members, I am Eric Johnson. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority.
Chris Gilder, Deputy Chief, Metro Nashville Police Department. To answer the question, the facility is for us. It's for the 2 helicopters that were purchased a couple years ago. This is a lease agreement that came up in 2022. This hangar is being constructed to house those helicopters that you all so graciously purchased for us a couple years ago.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Swear. Councilmember Druffel, you're recognized.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think they answered my question. We're seeing more activity from John C. Toon over our neighborhoods, and so I just wanted to check to make sure there's no change in terms of size of planes and activity. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Druffel?
It did.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion? Councilmember Crump, Councilmember. Finance Director. I don't know if I just upgraded you or downgraded you, but you're recognized.
Did I get a promotion or a demotion? I'm not sure. So I just wanted to talk a moment about these helicopters and the importance of making sure that we do this lease. And Councilmember Druffle's going down a trail I think is really important. And as I make these comments, I'm going to make them to you both from a financial standpoint as well as being an aviator and somebody who flies in and out of the John Tune area all the time. From a financial standpoint here, this is really our only chance to move these helicopters out of the Bordeaux neighborhood where they are. They currently fly over playgrounds, tennis courts, the Greenway. It's a very unsafe environment for the size of these helicopters. It does move them to John Tune. The property at Tune, as it's being redeveloped post-tornado, is going very, very quickly. The airport has an obligation to do its leases at a market rate. And so if we pass on this opportunity, my own view is that I don't think land will be available. Even if it is, it will be a lot more expensive down the line than it really is today. And so as we look at the safety that is at the John Tune Airport right now, it is improved in every way, including having a control tower there, which will be very important as our air traffic grows in the area, and is also the same controllers that can really help with the altitude that they fly and where they fly, so we can avoid that noise in the neighborhood, and a lot of the other ills that really come with just having a growing city that needs a modern fleet of aircraft. So I would urge all of you from a financial standpoint and just from a public safety standpoint to vote for this lease.
Thank you, Director Crumbaugh. Appreciate that. Councilmember Horton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, despite not being on the committee. This John C. Tune's in my district, and I just want to echo the comments made by the Finance Director. The John C. Tune Airport is located in the Cockrell Bend Industrial Park, and so it doesn't raise many of the same concerns of being in a residential neighborhood as the current location of the helicopter. So urge the members of this committee to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Horton. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions or not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2024-490, Sepulveda Gamble, Porterfield Welsh, amends RS 2022-1860, reallocating funds formerly allocated to collective or shared equity housing to both the Strobel Center and Barnes Fund, and RS 2022-1861, reallocating funds formerly allocated to shared housing improvements to the Barnes Fund. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Before we go into the discussion, I'm going to let Director Angie Hubbard explain this legislation to us. I know we had a lot of questions about this. And then Vice Chair Toombs, I saw you first, so you'll be the first person recognized.
Thank you, Chair. To clarify, these funds are already in the Barnes Fund. Resolution 2022-1862, which would be the $1.2 million for the shared housing improvements. When that was passed by council in FY23, that was already appropriated to the Barnes Fund. We're just simply asking for it to be used for a broader purpose for rental housing for older adults instead of the shared housing improvements. The other funding for the shared equity housing, when it was originally appropriated by council through RS 2022-1860, it did go to planning, but then we came to council last year, and through resolution 2023-2370, that went to the Barnes Fund as well. So these aren't new monies coming to the Barnes Fund. They're already there, and we're just asking for the uses to be expanded. Instead of just focusing on shared equity, we would like for it to also be applied to homeownership. Then the $4.7 million would go to the Strobel Center.
Thank you so very much, Director Hubbard. Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions. So I think I may have just lost my train of thought, Lord. I'll go to my second question. How much money is currently in the Barnes Fund?
I'm looking at Mary Jo, who's pulled up. She's pulling it up. Yes, please.
And while you're looking for that, this moving of funds, as you said, it broadens the use of it. So you're not moving away from shared equity, are you?
Correct. We're not moving from shared equity. Shared equity is a narrow home ownership type of program, so we want to, we have some proposals in for other home ownership that just aren't shared equity that we would like to apply these funds to. But we would also fund shared equity proposals as well.
Just waiting on the total.
So the total appropriation, let me go to, I'm sorry, let me go over to the slide over this way, to my son. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was, can you slide over? Yeah, I think.
And as people are gathering their thoughts, the next person will be Councilwoman Soror, followed by Councilwoman Gamble.
Okay. We have a total appropriated to the, funded toward projects of 108 million. We have around, I think, 100 and, this doesn't count FY24. So we have about 120 million in the Barnes Fund. That's what's already been appropriated. For projects.
But then the reimbursement, so that's your balance.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't have the, these are all that's been appropriated. That doesn't, we haven't put 24 in there yet. We'll get, I've got it on another spreadsheet that's not in front of me on my phone. But if you give me a minute, I will pull it up.
And we can go to other folks' chair. So the amount that's been appropriated to projects and then the amount that's available to award for projects, is that two different things?
Yes. So we've appropriated all of the Barnes Fund that we've received except for FY24 and these dollars that are before you today. So what we have is we issued a funding round, opened it at the end of the calendar year. We have enough projects, actually have more projects than we have funding for with our FY24 allocation and the reallocation of these funds. We have about $43 million worth of requests. So once we're finishing evaluations, bringing those to council, we will have all of our funds appropriated through the Barnes Fund that we've received to date.
And Chair, if I can ask, what's the FY24 total appropriation for Barnes Fund?
It's 30 million.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilwoman Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I was the one looking at that 5 million so well to be able to use it. So thanks for the clarification. My question is this. The 4 million that you have, you're not going to spend it until FY25. So is that not money that is available to use in 25 as well for the Barnes Fund?
Director, you're recognized.
Thank you. So this was available, some of this money was appropriated in FY23, some in 24. When we opened the current funding round, well, first of all, let me go back. We had a funding round in the fall, funding round 12. That's where we made some of the money available that we didn't get enough applications for. So we opened another funding round in the winter, funding round 13. We had enough applications. What we knew was coming was the surplus money that was part of the FY24 budget, but we didn't know when we were going to receive that. We got notification at the very end of February. So we added that to the pot of money to fund projects. We also knew that we needed to reallocate this money to meet all the obligation timelines for ARPA, so we needed to go to COVID Oversight Committee. Had we had this happen earlier in the fiscal year, all of these projects would come before you before the end of the fiscal year. It just happens to be that the timing pushed us back to where we will be awarding the projects in July instead of June. It's still fiscal year 24.
I'm trying to gather my thoughts as well. The 4.2, the way that I look at it is that 1.2 is already committed, but there's like a 2 million that is not committed yet and will not be committed until after June. So will that not make it something done in 25? I mean, and I'm just trying to look at that timeline. Maybe I'm missing something here, or maybe I'm looking for what's not there. But we've not committed it yet. We've not given it out. It's not like the other 80 million that we're talking about. So is that not something that we would do in 25?
The Housing Trust Fund Commission will be approving these recommendations at their meeting on June 28th. We just won't. But that's just the timing. That is what we've been telling the Trust Fund Commission. We just can't bring the contracts to you until July because they've got to approve the recommendations first. That's just how the timing is laid out with getting the surplus money in and having the full pot of money. We wanted to fund as many projects as possible because we had almost all of the 18 proposals passed our threshold evaluation. So we knew we had at least well over $40 million worth of fundable projects. A lot of them are shovel-ready. The ARPA ones that we're going to use will be shovel-ready because we required them to already have zoning and site control in place. It's just that we were pushed back because of getting the surplus money and then having to go to COVID oversight before we knew for sure we could count on adding this money to the full pot for round 13.
When will round 14 be happening?
Round 14 will be open in, actually tomorrow, but that is the $7.5 million we're getting from MDHA that counts toward FY25 money.
All righty. Thank you. I support Barnes. You know I do. And I support housing. But in a year that we're looking for money and looking for things for employees, we have to, turn out every couch. And so if we have money that is not allocated, that's what we're trying to get to. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Swear. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. In the allocation of $4.4 million going to the Strobel Center, can someone speak to what those funds will be used for and what the term of those funds? Is it just for this year, 2024, or will it be longer term that these funds will be available for those services?
We do have Director Calvin in the back to speak to that. Director, if you could introduce yourself, you are recognized.
Good evening, April Calvin, the Director of the Office of Homeless Services. Thank you all for having me here. Great question, Council Lady Gamble. When we went and reached out to the ARPA committee, there were 4 big things that we needed the funding for. One is the operating reserves for the Strobel Center. 2, the operating up to a year, 18 months of operating cost, and then a year to 18 months of supportive services. And then 2 other things, one which be a little bit of asset management for my team for oversight for the Strobel Center, and interim housing bridge funding to help with continuing our movement with encampments.
Thank you, Director Calvin. Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2024-491, Gamble, Coopin, Toombs, Porterfield, amends RS 2022-1905 and RS 2024-203 by changing the proposed uses of certain American Rescue Plan funds appropriated to Fisk University. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilor Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I support the resolution. I just added my name to it. But since the money was intended for a different purpose to start with, how do we ensure that when things are going better, that the intended original purpose will be completed, the building will be done, and that the local entrepreneurs will be submitted? I just want to make sure that this is just a timing thing, but we're going to come back to what we wanted to do in the beginning.
Thank you, Councilor Soror. Is there anyone here that can speak to that? Councilor Johnson, I'll get you next. I wanted to see if there was anybody that was either with Fisk or, looks like we have someone coming to the podium. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Carr. I'm the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Fisk University. And yes, we are currently embarking on a campus master plan. And in that master plan, we definitely have in that plan to complete Burris Hall.
Thank you. Council Lady Johnston, you are recognized.
Thank you. I'll speak to that first because it was made clear in the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee that the Entrepreneurship Center was something that the new president felt like was not in keeping with the university's mission, which is higher education. So I very seriously doubt that that's going to happen. And once this $10 million is gone, there's no, I'm sure they want it to happen. What was made unequivocally clear was that it's not going to happen. We're at ground zero as far as renovating Burris Hall and putting in the Entrepreneurship Center. So that project is null and void. That is not going to happen. This money is 100% going to a completely different scope. And so while it's a wish list item for them, they don't have money for it. They don't necessarily have a way to pay for it even in the future, even though that's something that they want to happen. But as far as this $10 million goes, the renovation of Burris Hall and the Entrepreneurship Center that was intended to go there is not going to happen. And so what was told to us is and I don't necessarily disagree with the new president who's come in and said, hey, we've got some financial difficulties. We've got some things that we've got to work through. And so an investment of this size and something that's not necessarily in keeping with the priorities of Fisk University, which is higher education, is probably something that's not a prudent thing to do. So I don't disagree with that. I didn't agree with the $10 million allocation in the first place. The challenge right now is that, or what was told to us was that FAFSA, which is our federal aid deal, probably everybody when they were 18 years old filled out a FAFSA form. It's super fun. And so that's where a ton of funding comes from for all of our universities, colleges, all of that. And so they've had, whatever their issue is, it has been resolved. What it has done, it has created a backlog. So what used to happen, they used to get all this information from FAFSA, all the different universities would get this information at the end of March, early April. Now they're getting it at the end of May, early June. So it's been a 2-month delay, which has created a problem because now they have what they used to be able to process in 2 or 3 months, they're having to do in 2 or 3 weeks. And so they're saying, well, it's a cash flow problem. We need that money. We need that money. That's also a falsity. I called the CFO of MTSU and he explained to me, because I don't know anything how this works, that money is not drawn down on until the school session starts. So if school doesn't start until September 1st, for example, the money that has been accepted for student SUARA to go to whatever university, that university does not pull that money down from FAFSA, from the federal government, until the school session starts on September 1st. Maybe there's a day or two wiggle room there. So as far as a cash flow issue, we're not solving a cash flow issue. It's probably $250,000 to add some temporary workers or an outside firm to help process those applications in a timely fashion to get it done. But unless those applications are not processed by fall, that's when the cash flow issue would happen. So this money, this $8.9 million, which is the balance of the $10 million, because they've spent 1.1 already on the development of Burris Hall, architectural, this, that, and the other. The balance of $8.9 million is specifically going for cash flow for this university, because historically they've had issues, and I get that the new president has come in and is absorbing all of that. In my estimation, the way that we have handled allocations from ARPA or from the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee and this body is when the scope changes, we legislatively change it. If the project is not going to happen, that money comes back to the committee, or that's how it's supposed to happen. The original project is not happening. This money should be coming back to the committee for reallocation to something else, or it should be coming back to the committee. I do not think that it is an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars from Nashville, Davidson County to go and subsidize a private university or any outside organization. It has nothing to do with the value of Fisk. I think Fisk is fantastic. everything that we've written or read from folks that have called in, 100%. It's just not the best use of taxpayer dollars. It's not appropriate. And so I'll be voting no, but I did want to clarify that this project is not happening.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Sora, do you have a follow-up question? And then we will recognize Councilmembers Gamble and Vice Chair Toombs.
So, Councilman, and I should address the chair. From that response that I heard a timing issue. I heard the money will come in September. That is a timing issue, which means that the money will come in. And when the money does come in, there's opportunity to now do what needs to be done. So that's, and I just need someone, and I think that's what the gentleman says, that that's the intent. So if somebody can just speak to that specifically, because if it's a timing issue, then that's fine. That's, if FAFSA is delayed, and then when they get it, that is a timing issue.
Director Crumbo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. And let me see if I can connect some of the dots about the information that's here for FISC. So Councilmember Johnston was describing the origination of this grant. And I think that's really important. It was originated from ARPA dollars. It's in the total amount of $10 million. And until recently, about $1.1 million of that has been spent on the original intention, which is the design and development of the Burris Hall, primarily for a home for the Freeman Entrepreneurship Center. What we have learned here in the last few months is that trying to complete that mission right now would be very challenged, primarily because the financial stability of the university has become challenged. Over the last couple years, they've had a bit of a decline in enrollment, like so many universities have related to COVID. They have some longstanding financial issues that they were making progress on until that era of time happened. And so much of that is just really starting to catch up to them at this moment. And that's coming along at a time that, again, like so many universities, they have a lot of capital needs as well that they need to step up to, including improvement of dormitories, a science center, and some other facilities there for the overall good of the university. So what we face right now is quite simply that the mission that was originally set out really can't be accomplished unless the university itself really can find its way to a more stable place. So what is being proposed here is an expansion of the scope of the monies that remain. And Councilmember Johnston is correct. Those monies would be used for the working capital needs of the university. They would be used to really make sure that it continues in the fashion that it has for 150 years now. With those dollars, it is my belief that the university then can turn to the normal sources of monies that universities do, foundations, other government sources, and so forth. And so I'm really hopeful that the city's expansion of the scope would really leave FISC to a much better day than it has at this moment from a financial standpoint. So that's where I see things going for them, and I hope you'll vote for this resolution.
Thank you, Director Crumbo. Council Lady Sora, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Council Lady Johnson, I'll add you to the queue. Council Lady Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak to some of the assertions that were made by my colleague, Councilmember Johnston. As a member of the ARP committee, I was present for that meeting, and of course, it's recorded, and hope I invite the public and other council members to go back and review that video of that meeting. But not at any time did the president say that she was not, that this project was not going to happen. In fact, to the contrary, the project has already started. There has been a kickoff. If you all remember, we did amend this resolution a few months ago to allocate $500,000 of the $10 million to 2 years of operating for that entrepreneur center to start. The kickoff for that entrepreneur center happened a few months ago, or actually a few weeks ago, and 10 businesses, there's a cohort of businesses that are already started the training and classes and getting services for that program. It was always intended that when the program started, the building wouldn't be ready. So they are conducting those classes. I believe it's happening at Pathway Lending, where they've already started the program, and the cohort of businesses are already doing the program. So to suggest that the program isn't going to happen is just not true. The program has already started. It's happening. What's being halted is the construction on Burris Hall. And what they are asking at this point is to expand the allowable use of the funding to fill gaps that they foresee coming as a part of the fiasco with FAFSA. And so this is a temporary thing. As it's been stated by FISC Provost, the university intends to complete the construction of Burris Hall that is in their master plan of infrastructure and facilities for the entire campus. But to say that this program is not going to happen is just false. The program has already started. There's a cohort of businesses already doing the program, and we have allocated 2 years of operating towards that program already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to speak in support of this resolution. As other colleagues and the finance director have said, this is a temporary stopgap for Fisk University for them to shore up their finances to get on more stable ground so that they can, at a later time, turn their attention back to restoring Burris Hall. Fisk is not any other private institution or organization. It's part of the fabric of Nashville. So if Fisk fails, it's a failure for Nashville. So I believe that we have an obligation to step in and help them with this financial situation. How can they move forward with restoring Burris Hall when they can't keep the operations of the school going? So we should expand the scope of the use of the funds so that they can take care of their temporary financial issue and then at a later date get back to restoring Burris Hall. The program has already started, so they're already starting to fulfill their obligations. I'd ask for my colleagues to support the resolution.
Thank you, Vice Chair Toombs. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. So the FAFSA thing is not a temporary thing. It's not like we're going to give them $8.9 million and then they're going to get the FAFSA money in the fall and it pays back the $8.9 million. That's not what it is. They wouldn't get the FAFSA money until the fall anyway. It doesn't matter. Even if everything was processed today, they are not going to get that money. So it's not a temporary problem. This is a problem that has been in existence for a long time, and it's going to, and it's been widely publicized. They clearly have some issues. I just want everybody to be clear. The entrepreneurship center is probably going to happen. It's just not going to be in Burris Hall because we can't renovate. They don't want to use that money now to renovate the hall. This is not a temporary issue. In fact, in our meeting, it was called a bridge to what? That was another question. A bridge to what? Yes, we are temporarily bailing them out of something, but what's the other side of that? So I don't know the answer to that. And I'm not saying that Fisk, I agree that a failure for Fisk University would be a failure for Nashville, 100%. I just don't agree that this is the proper use of taxpayer dollars. I hope that they can get an endowment. I hope that they can I have full faith and confidence in the new president. I was very, very impressed with her. And I think they're going to get on the right track. Again, I just don't think this is the proper use of these funds, but I do want to be clear, this isn't a temporary problem, and it's not going to be reimbursed by FAFSA, because I think that's what some people are thinking, is that, this money that we're giving them now will be reimbursed by FAFSA, and so that then we can get back on track with Burris Hall. That's not the case.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. I have Councilwoman Sepulveda, followed by Councilwoman Allen, followed by Councilwoman Evans, followed by Councilwoman Soror. Councilwoman Sepulveda, you are recognized.
Sepulveda. Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the ARP committee, and I had some questions when we had our meeting regarding the timeline, how long it would take for them to get back on track. Would the money be put back in? Would the Entrepreneur Center be built at that point? There's no real timeline, right? Fisk is in a situation that we're trying to get out of. And so then I had to vote on it for what it was at that point. And it was not the Entrepreneur Center, but making sure that Fisk keeps its doors open. And once I got to that point, right, where we're not talking about the Entrepreneur Center anymore, this is what we're talking about. For me personally, I don't want Fisk to close its doors when we could have done something about it. And that's very important to me. And I know that a lot of students were waiting to hear back. And we want to make sure that the students come back, that the university is able to stay open for many more years to come, long after we're gone. And I did feel better knowing that Director Crumbo will be helping them along the way. He stated in the committee that they're not just going to receive all of this money, they will be receiving it as needed, and he will be working hand in hand. And so that made me feel a whole lot better. And so I voted for it in committee. But I think that piece of information was important for the budget committee to have.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sepulveda. Council Lady Allen, you recognize?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a good discussion, and I appreciate the COVID committee not just being a rubber stamp. I think we do need to be thoughtful and make sure that we are spending this money well. I am convinced by Director Crumbo's explanation. There is a nexus with COVID here. I mean, the purpose of COVID money was to help institutions and businesses survive a devastating loss of membership or revenue or whatever, and to carry them through that. And I think there are obvious connections between drops in student body and that has a financial impact, and you need time to come back from that. I feel that this is an important allocation to make to carry them through. There is a new president in place that we're all very impressed with. I have full confidence she can grow the student body again. She can grow the endowment and build, maybe FAFSA is not the answer, but I think there are other financial ways that this institution can, I think, under new leadership, get set in place and get back on track with the Burris Hall renovation. If the Entrepreneur Center is up and running, that was a key piece of it as well. So I appreciate the discussion, but I am going to support this.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. Councilwoman Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I did watch the COVID committee meeting, but of course it's been a little bit since they had that meeting. And so some information I just may not be able to remember, but kind of in the reference to in the resolution where it says it can be used for personnel and employee benefits, I guess kind of thinking about the FAFSA conversation around like what it costs for a student to attend FISC. And, if that's between $3 and $4 million, and then the other pieces that have already been spent and that kind of thing. So I guess, can somebody explain like what other things fall under the bucket of personnel and employee benefits? Is that like insurance premiums and that kind of thing? I don't totally understand that part.
Thank you. Director Crumbo, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'll do my best to round up some of this financial information in a really coherent way. So it is correct that FAFSA is just simply one of the financial issues that this university would face. And it's true that what has been a problem, in fact, it's been a national headline problem for universities, it is getting fixed. That's awesome. That is awesome news. The cash flow from that won't be realized till the fall. So we've got a gap between here and there really to meet. From a working capital standpoint, what I mean by that is the bills that need to be paid day in, day out, whether they're for students on student life, whether they're for faculty, salaries, compensation, so forth, they all come into the millions of dollars that FISC will really need to bridge really from here into their next academic year. And so at the time of the COVID meeting a couple weeks ago, or the oversight committees, I guess it's called now, we knew a little less about FISC and where they are then than we know now. And so we've been able to look even more closely at their financial picture. I am very confident that the $9 million remaining will go a long way towards bringing FISC into next year and allowing the new president, new development director, and so forth to really do their job and go get what it's going to take to sustain that university for another 150 years. With respect to the entrepreneurship programs, it is one thing to have a building. It is entirely something else to have something in it. And we have got the good fortune here that the fabric of our entrepreneurship community has really come together in the last couple of weeks. And I've had numerous conversations with the board chair of the Nashville Entrepreneurship Centers, Bobby Frist. Many of you know Sam Davidson's their new executive director. They have committed to President Clark that they will help absorb the programs as they're known today. We can put dollars behind those through the FISC monies. And so all of those educational programs, all of that outreach will continue uninterrupted. And quite frankly, given the financial issues we face at FISC, I think that those will be even bigger faster than they were attended. What will be lagging behind, of course, is the capital monies that would go for Burris Hall. My hope is that the position we're in now will attract more capital from local businesses that maybe haven't supported FISC in the past, other donors to support FISC, and the Burris Hall, whether it becomes built and entirely dedicated to entrepreneurship or whether it becomes something else, in the end, it's the 1,000 students that go to school there that will help determine where that's going to go. And I'm with Councilmember Allen, I really trust that our new president's going to guide us in a good way there, and that in the end, FISC will be better off, entrepreneurship will survive, and that this jewel of our city won't be lost.
Thank you, Director Crumbo. Council Lady Swear, you recognize. Oh, my apologies. Council Lady Evans, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I think, I guess kind of related to the oversight committee, because I don't remember about this part either. Like, how will we know, like, obviously finance is going to hold, you know, be the repository of all that information on progress and that kind of thing. If this passes, how will we know as a council about the progress and everything else? Is there a reporting requirement related to this money, or is it something else?
Director Crumbo, you recognize.
I will be building a monthly reporting, which I'm glad to share with the council, or probably the oversight committee in some ways, to where we're going. Someone made the comment earlier that I'm not looking to say, let's just put $9 billion into the university, keep our fingers crossed, and it's all okay. We've actually started to work through a rather detailed schedule as to what their needs are going to be. And the importance of that isn't just us being financially responsible as a metro government, how we go about it, but they have lenders. They have other sources of funds that we need to coordinate with and, quite frankly, encourage to, open their checkbooks as well and really participate in this. So it'll be an ongoing dialogue there. I do expect, though, that most of those dollars from the city standpoint will be absorbed over the next year or so. I would love to see some of those coming back to the capital of Burris Hall if we're able to get there. But at this moment, I don't think anyone, especially me, can predict the pace by which that's going to happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Council Lady Swear, you recognize.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for a good conversation. I want to speak in support as well. And while I was sitting back, I was asking Ms. Mary Jo some question, and I just want to get that on record. And so my question to her on the side is that the expanded use of these funds, is it allowed under the Apple funds disbursement that they do? And so I wanted her to just tell everyone what she told me.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Grant contracts, contributions to nonprofits, private institutions are allowed under ARP for their normal operations.
So we do allow use of Apple funds for operations, and so that's what this will be ending up being. So in light of that and the fact that what everybody said, hopefully we can get FISC going and we'll get to Burris Hall, and I'm glad that the program is already happening. So I do support it as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 1 against, 0 not voting. And just so that everyone is cognizant, it is about 6:10. We have, between 6:10 and 6:15, we have about 15 more items left on our agenda. So while it is very important that we vet everything that's before us, I do want to make sure that we're also cognizant of the time. I could stay here all night, but you may not want to. RS 2024-492 Porterfield authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle Daniel Singh's claims against the Metro government in the amount of $200,000 to be paid from the $3 million allocated by the Director of Finance on March 21st, 2024 to the Department of Law to avoid an operating deficit and minimize further cost accumulation for fees and expenses in connection with litigation and investigations. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, we have Council Lady Quinn Evans Siegel. We have Council Lady Soror. Did I see your hand? Okay, then I saw Councilmember Huffman. All right, Council Lady Evans Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple questions about this that I asked beforehand, and so I just wanted to ask them now so that everybody else can have the benefit of those answers. I think I understand for this lawsuit, we would have to hire outside counsel to defend us. Is that correct? Because maybe there are folks in the Department of Law who would be witnesses or named.
Director Deets, you are recognized if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Wally Dietz, Director of Law. That is a possibility, and that is a possibility that we considered, council member, as a part of this. There are one or two members of the Department of Law who had discussions with Director Singh. It's possible there would be a factual disagreement as to what was said in those conversations. And if that's the case, then and Director Singh contradicted what the attorney said, we would have to get outside counsel. So this is essentially a cost of defense settlement.
Thank you.
And I know what the cost of defense means, but just to clarify for those who maybe don't, that just means it's so expensive to defend that this is actually probably cheaper than if we had to defend it potentially.
We believe that to be true, yes.
Thank you. Council Member Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Director Dietz. And so the question that I have in looking at the analysis is that as part of this agreement, there's something that says Mr. Singh will not apply for future employment with Metro government. With other settlements with employee complaints that I've seen, I've never seen that before. Is this typical? I mean, it's just something that jumped out to me, and I was just wanting to know what that is. And
Director Deets.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member, for the question. It is 100% standard when we settle with an employee who is leaving and there were potentially grounds to terminate that employee, then we will put in a settlement agreement that that employee may not apply for a position with the Metropolitan government in the future. That is standard.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Soror? All right, Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick question regarding the $3 million that's allocated. To understand you correctly, Director Dietz, I believe that you just stated that that is regarding fees and expenses in connection with litigation that we didn't think that we could win. Is that correct?
Director Dietz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard the very last part of that question.
So the $3 million, that's a bucket used in instances in which we don't think we could litigate and win successfully. No.
No, Council Member. The Finance Director gave the Law Department $3 million. Out of that $3 million, we are paying a lot of awards to Thrive recipients, probably some grants. It depends where the money ends up between the $2 million in excess surplus funds plus the $3 million. But the vast majority of this is going to be used to pay artists.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's what I was getting at. So it's coming from the same bucket that the money that's coming from the Thrive recipients. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffman. Would anyone else like to be recognized? Is your hand up, Council Lady Styles? I couldn't see it was behind Council Lady Gadd's head, so my apologies. Council Lady Styles, you're recognized. Council Lady Gadd has a small head, not a big one. Sorry, Council Lady Gadd. It was just the angle. My apologies. Council Lady Styles, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair, for acknowledging me while I'm not on this committee. So my question is, there's a letter that I sent to Finance and Legal to ask how many lawyers had been paid, how many of the grants had been paid out. Not all of the grants have been paid out. It was about 10 days ago. Where are we now with artists being paid? Are we finished? Almost finished?
You, Council Lady Styles. Was that to legal or to finance?
The letter was sent to both Director Crumbo and Dietz.
Who would you like to answer, legal or finance?
Either one that has an answer is sufficient for me.
I will acknowledge the administration table for whoever would like to take a stab. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Amanda Deaton-Moyer with the Department of Finance. We have moved forward. It is more than that memo 10 days ago, but it is not complete. And it's a matter of when we get things in from the artists, and as soon as we are getting information in, we're getting information out.
Councilmember Styles, do you have a follow-up?
Not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Soror, you're recognized.
So question is, the 3 million is going to paying the artists and paying for the legal stuff. When we pay the legal settlement out of it, do we have enough to pay for everyone that we need to pay?
You're recognized.
Thanks, Councilmember. We believe so at this time.
Thank you so very much. Do we have any additional? Councilmember Webb, you're recognized.
How long is the time from the time that somebody submits the paperwork, or artist I'm talking about, to the time we get them paid?
Right now, if we get all the information and it's correct, and we get the information and it processes through signatures, it goes into payment, and it's the 3 to 5 days for payment. So it's about getting the information in and correct, and then signatures processing. So it varies. So I don't want to give you it's 5 days, because it just depends on if we got the right person, if they got it in, and so forth.
Do y'all have dedicated staff working on that, or is it just going through the regular process?
Feels like it. Yes, we do. We have a couple of staff that are monitoring emails daily and ensuring that as soon as something gets in, it's getting out and nothing's sitting for more than a day at a time.
Last question. How are y'all notifying the artist?
At least for the operating grants, there are organizations that we have information both from the system in which they submitted their grants, as well as the financial system, because they're organizations. And as for the Thrive recipients, the Thrive Awards, much the same way, but things have changed. Addresses have changed, so those have been a little bit more challenging, but we're staying at it. And if we can't get someone, we're trying different angles. And the system in which the submittable system has not proved as helpful as we wanted, but we're working at it.
Can y'all provide, let's just say we had an artist and they're like, we can't get our money, a certain person, that if we can say, email this department, this person right here to take care of you?
I can probably get you an email address pretty easy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Not that I have anybody, but I'm just saying.
Sounds like we're directing everybody to you, Council Lady Webb. Any other questions, y'all? I just had one clarifying question, because we've kind of heard some different things, so I just want to make sure that we're like all on the same page. The $3 million that was allocated from finance to cover any deficits that we could potentially have from the arts department, but it's my understanding that there's not a deficit from arts. We actually will end the year with like maybe $40,000 or something like that, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I got any of that wrong. What happens to the $3 million that we allocated to arts if arts does not spend that? If there's not a deficit, what happens to the remaining $3 million?
All of it goes into J&L.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So first of all, the vast majority of this $3 million is going to be used to pay artists. And these artists are getting funded based on the hire of the 2 board meetings that were in dispute. So we are paying artists who may have been in the position where they said, we relied on this money. So we're paying them. We're paying them as long as it was approved by the commission in either July or August, the Arts Commission. So the vast majority of this is going to that. It will take a while to sort this out. We now have additional litigation that has been filed by a former Arts Commission employee against Director Singh and the Metropolitan government. I don't know that we will pay for that lawsuit out of this fund. It may just come out of the General Defense Fund of J&L. But if there is any money left over in this $3 million account, it will go to J&L.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. I think there were some discrepancies based on some information that we previously got, and I think that it was thought that there wasn't a deficit, so that the $3 million was not needed. So thank you for clarifying that we are digging into the $3 million. Any additional questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item on the consent agenda, RS 2024-493, Vote Porterfield Styles approves amendments to 2 agreements relating to the acquisition of a parcel of property and improvements located at 607 Bass Street. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Someone pulled this off the consent agenda, so does anybody want to discuss it? Councilwoman Sora, you're recognized.
You said we should keep it moving, so I was gonna let it go. But my question is, I just want to confirm that I'm looking at the analysis. The prior contract says we will pay up to $9 million, but it looks as if the amendment is saying that our liability would not be more than $3 million. Am I reading that correctly?
Mr. Cross, if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Tom Cross, Metro Legal Department. And you are correct. At the time the agreements were first approved by the council, it wasn't clear how much of the grant money was actually going to come in. And now the nonprofit partner that we're working with feels that they're pretty confident that they can get the 2 other pieces of the purchase price.
Oh, yeah, let's amend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sora. Do we have anyone else, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? All right, motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item we have is RS 2024-498, Porterfield Evans appropriates $140,000 from the Metro Department of Health to Research Foundation of the City University of New York, OBO, National Network of Safety Communities for the provision of strategic advising to key Nashville partners and stakeholders, including law enforcement, service providers, and community leaders to implement NNSC's group violence intervention. Can I get a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Council Lady Allen and then Council Lady Sorora.
Thank you.
And then Council Lady Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this says that the contract ends June 30th, 2024. But it's got check-in meetings set up and webinars and all kinds of things that sound like it's a year-long contract. So can someone explain how this is going to work?
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. We do have Tom Sharp in the audience that can speak to us from the Health Department, maybe. Okay. We have Chief Gilder, Deputy Chief Gilder that can speak to it. Thank you, Chief.
I can't believe I'm volunteering to come to the microphone, but no, she just stepped out from health. She'll be right back. But my understanding, because we are a component of this, is that this is in part for work that's already been done. This is a project that has been ongoing, and I'd have to let health speak to the way it was structured and why the deadline. But to answer your question, this is stuff that's already been going on the last couple of years.
One more question, maybe 2 more. I'm excited about violence interruption. It's obviously something that Nashville can benefit from, given past events of recent, just the past week or so. But we've struggled with $1 million and then another $1 million that's supposed to be used for violence interruption, and we've had a hard time selecting who the partners were going to be. So is part of this money being spent on selecting who those entities are going to be, or is it something totally different?
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Do we have anyone available that can answer that question? All right. Hopefully the person will come back in and join us shortly. We'll go. Okay, thank you. We'll go to the, did you want to speak to that? Council Lady, Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And this is based off my understanding from last term. Group violence intervention is different from violence interruption. So my understanding of the group violence intervention was that there's folks in the city who have like a significant amount of arrests. We know who these people are, and putting resources in place to connect with those folks to try to reduce their continuous reentry into the system. Violence interruption is on the streets intercepting violent conflict. So it's 2 different things.
Thank you, Vice Chair Toombs. I believe we have the person from Health has stepped back in. There were some questions for you. So Councilmember Allen, Health is back in the building. Would you like to redirect your questions?
Thank you. So one has been answered. The other 2 that I had were, who is the project manager and who are the executive stakeholders?
If you could introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Hi, Kabera Leach, Chief Health Strategist, Metro Public Health Department.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Kabera Leach, Chief Health Strategist, Metro Public Health Department. And which resolution were you on? I apologize. I couldn't hold it anymore. That rain outside.
We are on RS 2024-498, the $140,000 from the Department of Health to Research Foundation of the City University of New York.
Okay. Well, that money is simply, or that resolution there is just allowing us to execute a grant to pay for assessments and advisement and research that has already been done by John Jay College. Or John Jay University in New York.
Council Lady Allen, you recognize.
Thank you. Okay, so that explains the end date of June 30th, 2024, which is very helpful. It refers to a project manager, which I guess is someone at Metro Health, and then also the executive stakeholders, just in general terms. Who are those people?
The project manager at Metro Public Health, I believe, would be in our behavioral health, Dr. Ann. The stakeholders in this are, of course, the public health department, as well as community organizations. A lot of them belong to the village, which many of you may be familiar with already. So,
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so very much, Council Lady Soror. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I had a conversation this weekend with a lot of organizations that are doing this type of work, and a lot of things came out of that. One, why are we using outside organizations when we have folks in the state, in the city that can actually do the work? Did we actually look into see if there's anyone here that can do it before we went to New York?
John Jay is not doing the work. They're one of the leading premier institutions in this entire country when it comes to violence interruption research, when it comes to law and that understanding. That's why we chose to go with them. This is also a decision that was made during our previous administration, and the Metro Public Health Department has now taken it over. So we really can't speak to why that didn't happen, but this is the contract that we have, and we have to legally execute it and pay them the money that they need to be paid.
So the other question, and I think someone may have asked, is that we're now getting this, they're already doing the work, so we can't even say we don't want them to do, we want somebody else to do it. So why are we just getting it now? I mean, there really isn't any choice for us whether we pay them or not at this point.
I think it's just a matter of the transition, taking change from the mayor's office to the public health department. That's the only answer that I have for you. But if you'd like me to get some more information on that for you, I can.
Yes, please. Yes, please. And then the last question that I have for you is that which community organizations are we using? There is a lot of, and I want to go on record as saying this. 2 or 3 years ago, when Councilmember Toombs was the budget chair, we put money into violence interruption, into crime prevention. We have organization in town that does this type of thing, and the money is just sitting down there.
Well,
so what is the old, this is a different kind of, but I'm just speaking generally to all of them. So why are we holding on to funds when we keep having violence, youth violence and things in the city?
Well, we're not trying to hold on to the funds. The funds should have been given to them. As you said, it's here now for that to be voted on. I can get more information for you if you'd like. As far as the specific organizations that are in here, it's a multitude of organizations, community organizations throughout the city. It's not necessarily people that are only working in violence interruption or specifically like that's their sole cause. So it isn't like the, aforementioned resolutions that we may be considering here. It's not really the same as that what you said you're aware of, but.
Thank you. I would like if we can have a list of the organizations that you're working with. I would also like to know what is the timeline in terms of using this fund that we've had for the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And what is the plan going forward? We cannot keep having grants and just having it set down when we know that there's a lot of that we need to do in that space. And as a mother, as a community member, I'm outraged that we're not doing as much as we can when we have the money to do it. Okay. So if we can get that information, please.
Okay, absolutely. Would you like me to send it to you directly, or should I send it
To the council office, yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could send that to Director Darby, she can distribute that to the Budget and Finance Committee. Council Lady Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I think I got a lot of my questions answered by our guest from Health, because I remember hearing about this John Jay relationship last term, and I didn't realize that we're just now to the point where we're paying them, but it makes sense in the transition. So I think I've gotten all my questions answered about that. I think one question I don't have is answered is the payment for this particular grant coming from the Department of Justice money that was allocated, I guess, in the fall when we passed that one? Or is it coming from a different line item?
It's coming from the Community Safety Fund. It's
Okay,
not from the
thank you.
DOJ.
And then kind of going back to Councilmember Swar's question where she asked about the timing of getting the grant now, and basically we're at the end of the project. One of the items that we passed on consent, number 22, RS 2024-499. So that is a project team that I happen to be on, and we're coming to conclusion of that particular program. It runs through the end of July, and we're getting it now. And so I guess can we have some understanding, I guess, and I don't know what this would look like from finance, like the timing between what it takes to, like, a department is allocated a grant and they accept it, and then they start whatever the work is before we get legislation. I don't totally understand that process, but I look at this item number 22 and I go, well, I remember when I was first asked to be on that project team, and it's been a little while. And now we're getting the legislation. So there's really would be no point in anybody voting against it because we're practically finished. So I don't know what that would look like in the future, but that's something that's kind of triggered for me based on Councilmember Suarez's question.
Thank you, Council Lady Evans. Do we have someone from Finance that can answer that question? Ms. Wiggins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure it's quite a finance question. We're happy to help. I do see the legislation when it comes through, and I ask all the same questions y'all have asked tonight, specifically with this. So I don't know why some things take longer to get filed. I do know that in some of the cases, the change in the administration has caused some of those delays where there was somebody in the mayor's office working on something, they've left, the ball got dropped, it gets picked back up, and there is a delay. It shouldn't happen. And I think that's what I think that's your point, and we agree. These contracts should be executed before the work starts.
And as a follow-up to that, I know kind of anecdotally, we were going to be having the resolution related to the opioid settlement money coming our way. And I know that those providers have already been notified, you're going to have this partnership, but we don't have any idea what it is. And so by the time we get it, we really will not be in a position, I think, to be effective, or potentially, in that example, to send it back to the Behavioral Health and Wellness Advisory Council, that kind of thing. So so it sounds like what you're saying is it's kind of a department by department challenge. And so if we have specific concerns around the department, I should start with that department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins, and thank you, Councilmember Evans. So to that point, I'm still not clear why it's just getting filed from Health. So can you all speak to why it's just getting filed?
All I can say is that this is when we got it. I do not know. I don't have an answer for that, but I can find an answer for you.
Thank you. Who did y'all get it from? Because then we can follow up with them.
It was originally in the mayor's office, the Office of Community Safety, I believe, where I think it was Ron Johnson worked there in that area. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries, and I'm getting a new number of people that are here. Y'all give us 1 second. How many? 10. Okay. Motion carries 10 in favor, 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next item on the agenda is RS 2024-499, Porterfield Evans Welsh Allen accepts a grant from the National Association of County and City Health Officials to the Metro Board of Health for Youth and Community Violence Prevention Action Teams to support new and or existing youth and community violence prevention. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Somebody pulled it off consent, y'all. It's covered? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2024-500, Porterfield Evans Welsh accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to prepare for, respond to, and recover from public health threats, including but not limited to the response and recovery from COVID-19 and mpox outbreaks. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. It seems like both of these crises have passed. So my question is just what happens if we don't have any new outbreaks? Is this just at the ready? Hopefully we don't need it.
Thank you. Do we have someone from health that would like to answer that? And if you could introduce yourself again, please.
Hello, Kavera Leach, Chief Health Strategist, Metro Public Health Department. So the goal of this is to maintain preparedness. It's additional funds. Like I'll read you something here that will be much more straight to the point and eloquent than me just blabbing this to you. But the Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity Program, ELC, provides flexible funding to health departments across the nation to detect, prevent, and respond to infectious disease outbreaks. This specific grant from the Tennessee Department of Health is supplemental ELC funding aimed at preparing for, responding to, and recovering from public health threats, included but not limited to COVID-19 and mpox outbreaks. The funding is a continuation of funding we received in 2020, and it has been instrumental in our initial pandemic response efforts, such as contact tracing, mobile vaccination, and testing. So in addition to that, there are some other projects to just demonstrate that it goes beyond COVID. And these are distribution of resources such as, what we've become familiar with at home, test kits and things like that to community members to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, and as well as mobile services programs. These mobile services programs bring essential services to community members, reducing barriers to access. The services offered include PrEP services, family planning, other initiatives focused on preventing and reducing infectious diseases, and the program builds upon infrastructure established already during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a good use of money.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2024-501, Porterfield Evans amends resolution RS 2024-213 to correct an error in the description of a grant from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention to the Metro Board of Health. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Somebody pulled it from consent, y'all. Okay. Would you like to ask your question, Council Lady? Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item not on consent, item number 32, RS 2024-509, Porterfield Evans accepts a project safe neighborhood grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration, Office of Criminal Justice Programs to the Metro Nashville Police Department to reduce gun-related violence in Nashville by providing funding for overtime for the investigation of violent crimes involving guns. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just had one question on, this is for investigation after stuff happens, and maybe someone can, or maybe we can just go back and look at the money we're spending on the group violence intervention. But are we spending more on preventing than we're spending on dealing with it on the backside, is my question.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. That was my exact question, so you read my mind. Deputy Chief Gilder, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, this is a grant from the Office of Criminal Justice Programs, and it's specifically for this type of work. And what it does is fund the overtime for the Titans team, who does come in and do post-incident investigation for non-lethal shootings and shootings. It's a grant that we've been receiving for a couple of years. Like I said, is solely for their funding their overtime. And currently, year to date, we're down 20% in homicides and 10% in aggravated assaults, and they do important work in solving those incidents.
Thank you. Councilor Soro, you're recognized. Oh, sorry. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next item, RS 2024-514, Porterfield, authorizes Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of John Dernbach against the Metro government in the amount of $137,500, and that said amount to be paid out of self-insured liability fund. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just had a question. This is sort of like the broken sidewalk thing, only this was a broken sign that impaled somebody. Do we have any kind of program where Metro employees are encouraged, if they see something while they're out doing their regular business, to just report things so that we can proactively fix this stuff?
Thank you so very much.
That may be a...
We have Matt Purvis with NDOTS. Come on down.
So we do absolutely, our folks out on the streets absolutely do put stuff in directly into our system whenever they see it. This particular sign, we never got notice of it until the incident happened. We had no record of being notified in any way. Once we were notified when the incident happened, we fixed it within, I think, 24 hours. But we didn't know it was there, essentially, for about 2 years, which goes into the reason why legal's settling, from my understanding.
Thank you. I'm just glad to know we encourage people to report it and not say they're not my problem. Hopefully we can get them all fixed.
Thank you so very much. And we have the administration would also like to speak. If you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Rosenberg with the Mayor's Office. I would just like to add that the Hub app that I hope most of you have or are aware of has a setting to report a damaged sign, and encourage everyone to use Hub for that purpose and many others.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. You can reach Hub by going to hub.nashville.gov or by dialing 311 from your cell phone. All right, next we have, oh, did we already vote on that? Just kidding, we haven't voted. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye, say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. There is a late filed resolution approves amendment number 1 to contract number 6488663 between the Metro government and Axon Enterprise Incorporated. It is not my intent to move this on the floor tomorrow. I was asked to bring this so that our committee could discuss it, but it is not the intent to bring this legislation tomorrow. Is there a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Council Lady Evans Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I was told about this bill is that this will allow MNPD to take their taser budget and just, they can choose to spend it on the taser 10s if they want, or the taser 7s, but it just gives them the flexibility for the new tasers. But it seems to increase the value pretty substantially, and so I'm trying to find out, I know some of that is for the new officers who don't have tasers, who need them, but I would love to know a little bit more on the breakdown between what is actually needed for those new officers. Surely those 200-something officers don't cost 1.5 times what the entire force has already cost. So just sort of what's the breakdown?
Thank you, Council Lady Evans Siegel. I see Chief Gilder making his way down. Chief Gilder, you're recognized.
Thank you. So you're correct in the sense that it does increase the number of users. The current number of users allocated under the existing contract is 1,400. This will increase it to 1,658. That, of course, is to cover the fact that we now have more than 1,400 officers. Our allocated staffing is 1,658 officers. So we are currently borrowing taser units from Taser because we don't have enough units. The Taser 7 runs, my recollection, I had it in my notes, but my recollection is they run around $70-ish per user per month. This contract would transition us from 7s to 10s, and the user per month cost is $93 per user per month. The actual overall cost is a little confusing because if you look at the legislation, it lists a 15 million number. That's including the prior program value. So the actual Taser 10 cost you're looking at is $9,251,640 over the life of the contract, which is a 5-year contract. And importantly, this is authorizes us to purchase. This is not an allocation of that money to us. So.
Council Lady Evans Siegel, you recognize?
Thank you, Chair. So we wouldn't keep using any of the 7s we just purchased under this. We would still go get all new 10s. I guess I thought this gave us the ability to use 10s, but I didn't understand until now we weren't going to keep the 7s we had.
We'll trade in towards the 7s will be traded in, and we will transition to all 10s.
Will we get a credit for the 7s we just bought?
So we are, the part of the contract, the financial obligation that we currently have of about $1.4 million is going to be reallocated towards the amendment. And then we're getting about $1 million credit as a part of this agreement as well.
Any follow-ups, Council Lady?
Yeah, I think the only question I have, and I just don't have it in front of me, is what is our current annual Taser budget, and will this require us to increase that annual budget?
Chief Gilder?
No, there's no increase that is being allocated towards the budget. We are using funds that we already have allocated for 7s. We've located and identified the funding to put toward with that to fund the transition from 7s to 10s. So we're not asking for additional funding.
One question just leads to another. Sorry. Where did we identify that funding from?
I would have to talk to my financial director. I'm sorry, I don't have that answer.
I would just appreciate kind of finding that out. And since it's not coming before us tomorrow, maybe just emailing that to the council office to share with budget committee.
Thank you, Council Lady Evans Siegel. I have Council Lady Evans, followed by Council Lady Toombs, Council Lady Sorora, then Council Lady Webb. Council Lady Evans, you're recognized.
I'm good, actually, with Councilmember Evans Siegel got one of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So this would be coming before us at some point because the contract is being amended from Taser 7 to Taser 10. I'm trying to understand, if you're using existing funds, why is this coming before the council?
Deputy Chief Gilder, would you like to take a stab at it?
Because the
Or
existing,
tase at it?
sure, thank you. Because the existing contract specifies the Taser 7 device. So in order to purchase Taser 10s, we have to amend the contract and the value of that.
That's it at this time, Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Sorora, you're recognized.
Thank you. May I ask why this is late filed?
Would you like to address that, Mr. Rosenberg?
Sure. Thanks. It was not ready in time and fully vetted in time for this coming meeting. We thought it would be beneficial to give the committees an extra opportunity to discuss it because it generated a lot of conversation when a previous version of this contract came through. But it is not our intent, as the sponsor mentioned, to request that anybody vote on anything this meeting.
And we will be getting the fiscal analysis for the next meeting that goes with it. So that way we can actually see whether it's increasing or decreasing cost or anything like that. Okay, I think once we have that information, then we can ask questions or go as needed. So I don't have any at this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Council Lady Webb. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, I was thinking the last time that we had this conversation, wasn't the data showing that the 10 was safer even on the person getting tasered than the 7?
So one of the benefits that we, I'm sorry. Good.
Oh, you're recognized. My
Okay.
apologies.
No, you're good. One of the benefits, well, there's multiple benefits to the device, but yes, you're correct. The use of the taser is a de-escalation tool. And what it does is it prevents us from having to utilize some other more serious force like a baton or firearm in certain cases if it's a deadly threat that's been presented. So the Taser 10, it has basically a doubled effective range. So we're able to utilize it from greater distances, which distance is an important mechanism that we use in de-escalating incidents. So the closer you are, the less reaction time you have to respond to something. Additionally, the Taser 10 allows you to individually place the darts, which is an important factor. That was one of the biggest issues we've had since we've used tasers since about 2005 is traditionally they fire 2 darts at the same time. So you're having to target 2 different places on the body, which, people aren't generally standing still in a confrontation. And oftentimes are wearing clothing that can complicate that. And we have certain places that we can target for the dart placement and other places we can't. So there are lots of cases with the prior models where maybe one dart hits, but the other doesn't, and then you don't get effective neuromuscular incapacitation, which is what causes people to lock up and not be able to fight. The Taser 10 allows you to individually place those darts so you can more precisely target an effective location on the body. But also, if you miss with one of those darts, you have it contains the new model, the Taser 10. The reason they call it that is because it contains 10 darts. So if I happen to miss, one hits, one misses, then I just fire another dart, and it will make the connection. So with the other models, you used to have to change the cartridge off. The Taser 7, the one we currently use, there are 2 on one device, but they're set up, the spread on those are set up differently, so it's not exactly the same as having 2 bites at the apple. But this is essentially you have 10 chances to get good placement so that you can effectively incapacitate the subject. So yes, it's safer.
Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions while we're talking about cost. Comparing the 7 to the 10, I do want to talk about cost, but I want to talk about cost in the form of human life. That's really what I want to highlight here. The 7, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Chief Gilder, you have to hit 2 prongs, correct, for it to be effective?
Point of order, y'all. We need to keep this germane to budget conversations respectfully. We can have this conversation in the Public Health and Safety Committee, but we need to keep this germane to budget.
Sure, I understand that, Chair. I would argue that if someone was killed in a misfire or something, we could be sitting here conversating about a contractual liability issue. Continuing with the 10, one thing that I just want to point out for my colleagues. Number one, there's a loud pop with the 7 when it is fired. This can cause an individual to run, potentially thinking it's a firearm being pointed towards them. The 10 is more silent, more like a BB gun, airsoft gun, I would say. I mention that just simply because I took the time this past Friday to go out and see it myself. And the two shooting really just kind of put it into perspective for me. We're talking about human life. If we're going to talk about the cost, we definitely need to factor that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. So we have a few options since this will not get moved tomorrow night. We can vote to approve it tonight. We can not take any action tonight, or we can vote on a deferral tonight. it is up to our committee which action you all would like to move forward with. Councilwoman Evans Siegel.
I think if we go ahead and move to defer, that probably provides a little bit more public transparency because people will know for certain that it's coming up. So I would move to defer one meeting.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the one meeting deferral? It has been moved and properly seconded. My apologies. Is there any discussion on the one meeting deferral? I did want to remind you all that our next meeting will be the meeting that we're voting on the budget. So that will be a very heavy lift for council members. So if this is something that you are wanting to dig into, just keep in mind that it will also fall on the same night as the budget if you're looking at a one meeting deferral. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of a one meeting deferral say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? A one meeting deferral passes 10 in favor, 2 against, 0 not voting. Chair also voted against the one meeting deferral. Next item is BL 2024. Oh, my apologies. We don't have that many people anymore, y'all. Hold on one second. We need to recalculate the how many people we have here. We have 10 people here, so it is 8 in favor, 2 against, and 0. You were nay, my apologies. We have 7 in favor, 3 against the one meeting deferral, and 0 not voting. Did I capture everybody correctly? The nay votes were Council Lady Webb, Councilmember Huffman, Council Lady Porterfield. All right. One meeting deferral carries. Bills on second reading, BL 2024-3. 343, Styles, Coopin, Eastlick, and others, amends Chapter 2.112 of the Metropolitan Code of Law regarding the membership of the Metropolitan National Arts Commission and the process for approving the criteria for awarding funds. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded, and we have a plethora of amendments. Council Lady Styles, would you like to speak on it before we start addressing the amendments as lead sponsor?
Thank you very much again, Chair. Yes, so this is, I believe this first piece is in regards to placing a council member on the Metro Arts Commission, as well as the process for which the grants are going to be approved to come before us as well. Previously, there was a resolution, apparently in 2001, that showed up in that 1 year and never showed up again in terms of approval. So this would make it an ordinance so that we actually know what is happening versus a one-time act of a resolution and not really understanding or getting blindsided as we have over these last few months as to what is happening in this department. So I would ask for support and approval.
Thank you, Council Lady Styles. Council Lady Allen, would you like to be recognized on your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start with moving the First Amendment, and all that does is, while we're at it, just clean up the staggering language. There's language in here currently that goes all the way back to 1989, which doesn't seem relevant. So I would just like to move that First Amendment, and all it does is clean up the staggering.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. Councilmember Styles, you're recognized.
So Chair, I'll ask you, would you like me to make an overall statement on the amendments or have a commentary as we go through each one?
You can go to each one as we go through each one. Okay,
I'm good with this one.
Okay. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any additional discussion on Amendment 1? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? It looks like we have 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Second Amendment, Council Lady Allen, would you like to move this amendment?
Yes, ma'am. I think it would be a good discussion. So this one just raises the issue of the fact that most often when council puts people on committees, we do it by the entire council rather than by a committee, by the committee that's connected with that. So I would be interested in hearing other people's comments on that. I would move the amendment.
Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Styles, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councilmember Allen, because I know that you are deliberate when you come up with amendments. I'm not in favor of this amendment. I served last term for 2 years off of Health and Human Services being placed on the MAC board, and that was a vote that took place within the committee. I do think that committees that are currently doing the work should be able to make a determination in terms of nominating people. Versus, I know that there are some committees that we bring to the entire body. I think in this particular case, it would work just fine for the committee that has been very engaged and active over everything that has been happening over the last few months to be able to put forth an individual to serve on the committee. And I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Is it possible to propose an amendment?
Director Darby, you're recognized. Oh.
An amendment to the motion that's on the floor?
Yes.
The motion on the floor is to move approval of amendment number 2. And you are not a member of this committee.
Well, I'm just
You
asking,
would
so
need to request a
is it something
member.
that I could do tomorrow, just in general? Because I feel like there's a halfway point.
If you wish to file an amendment to the legislation, then you wanted to file it tomorrow, it would be a late filed amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Council Lady Vice Chair Toombs, followed by Council Member Sepulveda, followed by Council Member Coopin.
Thank you, Chair. So the issue that I have with this amendment is making it a non-voting, making the council member a non-voting member. I think that if there's going to be a council member serving on the commission, that council member should be entitled to a vote. I do agree that if we're going to have a council member on the commission, that person should be chosen from the body at large. I understand that we do have some instances where a council member serving on a particular committee, that committee chooses something like with the instance of a MAC, and that probably needs to be changed. Just throwing that out there. Overall, I would say there is a working group that is looking at boards and commissions as a whole. I understand that there are a lot of issues right now with the Arts Commission. However, I don't think that we should get ahead of that working group. And we should let them do their work and let them prioritize the Arts Commission. So I don't think this change is actually necessary, but if we're going to do it, the issue that I have with Amendment 2 is that it's making the council member a non-voting member. And so for that reason, I'm not in support of Amendment 2.
Thank you. Council Lady Sepulveda, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. As Rules Chair and as a member of the Working Committee, it is something that's on the list. I think Metro Legal is currently working through some state regulations that says that council members serving on boards and commissions that aren't created by charter, et cetera, can't be voting members. And so that's currently being looked at through legal. So that is one of the items that's on our agenda to look at. As far as the amendment goes, I completely agree. I do think that we need to look at the MAC board and how that one is appointed, and it needs to be uniform throughout. When we have a committee choosing which member serves on a board or commission, we're technically having the vice mayor choose who's serving on the board and commission, really, because the vice mayor is the one appointing committee members, and right now we're all good, but it could look different as administrations come and go. So I'm more in favor of this amendment because it is uniform throughout. But again, we do have a working committee, and we have a long list of items to go through, but trying to figure out uniformity throughout boards and commissions is really important.
Thank you, Council Lady Sepulveda. Next, we have Councilmember Coopin, followed by Council Lady Evans. Councilmember Cooper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question, I think, for Director Darby. Can we get a sense of which commissions currently have council members selected from a committee itself versus which are selected from the whole body? I'm not looking to get a comprehensive list, but just to get a sense kind of how we're set up.
I don't have well, I do have a little bit of a list. So let's see. The Greenways Commission has council members selected by committee, and the Arts, Parks, and Libraries and Entertainment Committee would be that one to select those. And those are 3 members that are selected by that committee. Let's see. The Metro Action Commission has 2 members selected, one by Public Health and one by Planning and Zoning committees. And I believe the Metro Safety Advisory Board is selected by the Public Health and Safety Committee. And that is as comprehensive as my list is right now.
And are those members voted on just by the committee itself, or is that the whole body?
They're voted on by the committee itself.
And then for Planning and Zoning, for example, I believe is that a full body potential appointment?
Yes, the appointment of the council member to the Planning and Zoning Committee is full body election by election. Traffic and Parking Committee is also by the full body. The Audit Committee is by the full body.
Thank you, really appreciate that. One last comment.
Short-term Rental Appeals Board is by the full body as well.
It sounds like there's maybe a mix of it, and I think for just where I stand currently, I think that an option maybe where it's somebody from the Apple Committee, if you will, is put forward, but then the full body votes. To me, that might be a compromise that with a check and balance so that the full body can make sure that they're in support of the individual that gets put forward, but it is from a committee that is hopefully passionate about things like arts, given that they're on that committee versus something like budget or planning or zoning. But I also recognize my colleague, Councilwoman Sepulveda's comment of, we're all good now, but in a future setup, it does allow the vice mayor some power towards selecting that. So I recognize that concern, but I think I'd be okay with a compromise of, someone from the Apple Committee being put forward, but a vote from the whole body. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coop and Councilmember Evans, followed by Councilwoman Soror. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I know we've talked a little bit about the working group in passing, but would the administration share publicly, like, who's on the working group and, like, your timeline for getting to a point where you feel like there is something that we'll be able to vote on? Because I feel conflicted, mainly because I agree with the sentiment of the direction of different aspects of this, but at the same time, if it's going to take forever, then I don't want to wait either.
Mr. Rosenberg, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our next meeting in the next couple weeks is when we're going to nail down a timeline and scope, so I don't have that for you yet. The members of the committee are Macy Amos from Legal, Ashley Batchelder from the Human Relations Commission, Margaret Darby from the Metro Council Office, Amanda Dietmoyer from Finance, Shannon Hall from Human Resources, Mike Jameson from Water Services, Sneh Patel from Finance DEI, Kathy Floyd Buggs from the Mayor's Office, Austin Kyle, Metro Clerk, and Councilmember Sandra Sepulveda.
Thank you. And then as a follow-up, so when is your next meeting?
It's tentatively next week.
Okay. So then if this was deferred one meeting, then we'd know what your timeline is and if that works for our timeline?
If the working group all agrees by the end of that meeting, then yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Council Lady Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to chime in that I had the pleasure of serving on Metro Action Commission in the Housing Fund and Audit. And I think there's something about the committee that actually looks at legislation coming from that group, having a member from that committee representing the council, because there are information that you can serve as a bridge, as they're talking about on the commission, that you can take to the commission meeting, but also to be able to bring back to the council floor as they're discussing it as well. So there's something that is said about having somebody who is passionate about that issue, having somebody who is on a committee that already talking about those issues, serving on the commission. There's something to be said for that. So I think maybe Councilmember Coopin might be onto something where if there's consensus to put it to the entire house, then maybe it has to be a member of the committee that is selected so that we can keep that connection between that board and the council. So I just wanted to put that out there, so.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sora. Councilwoman Sepulveda, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I do appreciate the thought. Again, we want uniformity throughout, and that is the goal. We are looking at the sizes of council, the way it's appointed. We potentially, depending on how this legislation goes, to reduce the size of council, can see a problem with how many council members are serving on extra boards and commissions. If we are shrunk down to 20, then we will see a huge problem that we will have to solve again. So that's one thing, right? If we're adding more council members to boards and commissions, we need to consider what the possibility of that will look like if we are shrunk down to 20. I think we're currently looking at the number of council members that are serving on boards and commissions that aren't committees. So that's something else that the working committee will need to look at. And Director Darby and I were discussing the other day. With so many questions, I think it would be more prudent to defer so we could get the working committee to figure out what the timeline is going to be and update the council body on what this will look like entirely. Again, we worked on legislation last year that reworked the number of board seats that we gave to the mayor's office and the council office. That was one phase of it. There are so many different issues that we have to address, just so you all know.
Thank you, Council Lady Sepulveda. Council Lady Styles, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the commentary from Councilmember Sepulveda. However, I would say, much to former Councilmember Rosenberg's point, we don't know if there's going to be consensus at the next meeting. We don't have any idea of when this legislation is going to be finished. And there's actually a need now for a council member to be present to answer questions. As Councilmember Zwara mentioned, it is helpful to have a council member present to be able to ask questions. And certainly my experience has been in speaking with members of the commission. There's some confusion. There's been misleading information, and some things I think council would be able to get cleared up. I appreciate fixing boards and commissions because we certainly have a problem. We do need to find uniformity, but until we are ready to roll this legislation out in its fullness, where we are not there yet, that does not mean that we stop the work that needs to be done currently. So while there is a need, I believe that we should move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady Styles. Council Lady Gamble, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak in support of Councilmember Sepulveda's suggestion that perhaps a deferral would be prudent in this matter, because if we were to move forward and pass something, it could be in contradiction with what the working group comes up with for boards and commissions, and we will be back at the table with this one. So I think just in a organized fashion and in prudent fashion, we should defer this at least until we get more information from that working group as to what the uniformity of our boards and commission appointments will be. I'm not sure if one meeting is enough. I'm not sure how much time is needed for that, but I do agree that a deferral would be the most prudent thing for us to do today.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Huffman, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. I don't disagree with my colleague, Councilmember Styles, that there is a need for this right now. Councilmember Sepulveda brings up a very good point that we do not know the future of this council body. I would hate for us to back ourselves into a corner. I think a deferral makes sense. I don't know if it's a 1 or 2. That's the thing that I keep going back in. So I'll let us keep discussing that, and I'll try to be swayed one way or another.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffman. Would anyone else like to be recognized? Council Lady Soror, you're recognized.
I'd like to move for a 1 meeting deferral because the group is meeting next week, and so maybe they have a timeline by that meeting. So. 2 meetings?
Are you, so the motion that is on the floor at this present moment is a 1 meeting deferral. Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Just a point of order. A 1 meeting deferral would indicate the special meeting next week. A 2 meeting deferral would be the regular scheduled meeting. Is that correct?
Director Darby, you're recognized.
All of the 1 meeting deferrals that are being made are to the next regular meeting, not to the special meeting. Except for the CIB.
Thank you so very much. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Styles, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the idea of being deliberate. I also feel like with everything that has been going on and a lack of involvement, we have a lot of opinions about what we need to do now that we're not really taking into consideration what the outcome of that is for us to be inactive and not allow legislation to pass where we can have someone present. While there is a need to have some process and flow in Metro Arts. And I think the idea of deferring this because we're busy having side conversations, we could actually have someone sitting there being able to be helpful. So any deferral, I think, is us agreeing to add to more confusion and not really clarifying it. I appreciate points about what happens when we get minimized, but there are, 3 people currently serving? So if we get cut to 20 and there are 3 people serving, I think they can handle it. I would appreciate no deferrals of any kind. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And to be clear, right now we are on a 1 meeting deferral on the amendments or on the legislation. On the legislation, okay. 1 meeting deferral on the legislation. Is there any additional conversation on the deferral? Point of order, Council Lady Toombs.
Would a motion for a longer deferral supersede the motion that's on the floor?
Yes, is my understanding, but I'll let Director Darby answer.
Give me a second.
She is conferring to the rules. I believe that it does supersede it, but Director Darby's checking.
Yes.
I'd like to move for a 2 meeting deferral.
It has been moved and properly seconded for a 2 meeting deferral. Is there any discussion? Council Lady Toombs, you're recognized.
I don't think a 1 meeting deferral is long enough. I think we're going to be having the same discussion. So I think 2 meetings allows that work group to meet and to bring back whatever information to the body. And in light of it being budget season, it gives us more time to actually vet it and decide how to move forward.
Thank you, Council Lady. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of a 2 meeting deferral say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? 8 in favor of a 2 meeting deferral, 1 against, 0 not voting. Just kidding, I think it's 10 of us. So that is 9 in favor, 1 against, and 0 not voting. All right, we're down to our last 4 pieces, y'all. BL 2024-374 Porterfield establishes the tax levy in the General Services District for the fiscal year 2024-2025 and declaring the amount required for the annual operating budget of the Urban Services District pursuant to Section 6.07 of the Metropolitan Charter. We will need, this will need to be re-referred back to committee, just so that you all know. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Can I get a motion? I just got a motion. Sorry, just kidding. Is there any discussion? The motion on the floor is a motion for approval with a re-referral back to the Budget and Finance Committee, and that has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? It looks like we have 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. All right, BL 2024-375, Sepulveda, Styles, Walsh, and others, amends Chapter 4.20 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to establish a contract and compliance board for existing construction contracts of the Metropolitan government. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Sepulveda, would you like to be recognized?
Thank you, Chair. So this ordinance would create a compliance contracting board that would be made up of some members elected by the mayor's office, a nominee from the council body, a recommendation from the CLC, the procurement director, or a designee, and one council member that will be a non-voting member. Basically, it would task the board with auditing our existing contracts. When our legal office reached out to someone at procurement some time ago, we've been going through a transition for those that don't remember. Once a contract is signed, each department is in charge of auditing their own contract. It's not really happening now. There's no uniformity throughout departments. This would create a board to create procedures. It would also hire an executive director and inspectors to be on our job sites. As we all know, we are one of the most dangerous cities to work in construction in the South. We have had deaths, we have had injuries, we have had wage theft. The last death happening at Glencliff High School when a young man who was 20 years old fell through the ceiling. He was the main provider for his family back home. I didn't talk about this, but I was one of the people who was hopping on the phone trying to locate his body because his boss would not tell us where he was. Was also tasked with reaching out to the Guatemalan consulate to try and help out with that process. We are currently being sued by his family for wrongful death. MNPS is being sued, and the general contractor and the subcontractor. That just came out today. We are in a place where we don't know what's going on our sites. This could be helpful not only for us to make sure that our workers are safe, but also to mitigate any potential liability. If the board sets up a process that informs contractors, hey, just an FYI, we saw these violations, you guys should probably take care of it, that will also help the contractor. If we can't resolve the issue, those violations will be referred to OSHA and any federal department. We all know that, well, we might not all know, but OSHA and TOSHA have been underfunded. They do not have enough inspectors. I was talking to a former colleague that said that it took over a month to get somebody from OSHA out to one of his sites that was in his district that had violations and to get it closed. It takes forever. So this would be to help with the situation. That's basically the gist of it. But I would appreciate this body's approval.
Thank you, Councilmember Sepulveda. Any further discussion? Councilmember Spain, Councilmember Webb, Vice Chair Toombs, Council Lady Allen. Councilmember Spain, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the sponsor's efforts on bringing this legislation to us and wholeheartedly support the goal of keeping the people who are building the city safe and making sure that they are treated fairly. Like many of you, and that's why I signed on as a co-sponsor to the bill, like many of you, I've heard from several folks who have an interest in this legislation, and I feel like there are maybe some conflicting views about what it actually does. So I'm wondering if the administration would mind sharing their views on what the practical implications of this bill are.
Thank you, Councilmember Spain. Anyone it looks like we have legal weighing in on that. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Macy Amos, Metro Legal. We do have a couple of concerns about the legislation. One of the whereas clauses refers to wage theft and equitable wages. However, state law does prohibit Metro from imposing wages in excess of minimum wage under state and federal law. And state law also prohibits Metro from maintaining any law that creates requirements, regulations, or processes for the purpose of addressing wage theft. So I think that's probably our biggest concern, just because that is mentioned in the whereas clause.
Councilmember Spain, you recognize.
So is it your opinion that that language needs to be cleaned up in order to accomplish the goals of the bill without running afoul of those state laws?
I think as long as the enabling legislation is not in conflict with state law requirements, we'd be comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I do have a clarifying question for Director Darby. Director Darby, are we bound by whereas clauses?
The recitals, also known as whereas clauses, are not, those are not the binding language of the legislation. They do provide some illustration as to why the legislation is being proposed. So it could give the impression to the board or the public that it's, that the board is created for those purposes. But it is not, you're correct, it is not binding.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sepulveda, did you want to be recognized?
Yeah, I was going to say that. The whereas is all of this legislation was run by Director Deeds. We had a meeting some time ago, and they took a look at this language, not just him. I'm forgetting the other lawyer that was in the room. Director Darby was in the room. The lawyer from MMPS was in the room. We were all in that room. And these whereases were run by the department. So I guess I still plan on potentially having an amendment and suspending the rules on third reading. So if Metro Legal feels strongly about that, we could definitely, okay, I see shaking a head no. But if there is a concern, we could always address it in a potential amendment that I'm working on.
Thank you, Council Lady. We do have the administration that wants to weigh in.
Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. I just wanted to respond to Councilmember Spain's question about concerns from administration. From a finance side, our procurement team has raised two concerns that they have. One is that Section 1A 1 creates a conflict with the charter relative to the responsibility of the purchasing agent. This could be fixed if the language was inserted to make clear that this provision is not intended to conflict with existing charter or code regarding the responsibilities of the purchasing agent. That would be one correction. There's also a concern about Section 1A3 relative to the EBO. This EBO program is highly regulated under federal cross-on decision. We have a body of certified professionals in the business assistance office that monitors this program for compliance. This bill could create a conflict with the code about monitoring of the EBO and potentially imperil the program by involving a body of non-professionals. This could be fixed by simply removing any reference to the EBO.
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins. Did anyone else from administration need to respond? All right. Councilmember Spain, let me go back to you to finish your thought.
Thank you. Just given that response, and I guess this is a question for the sponsor, but since we are on second reading here, is it the intent to suspend the rules on third to bring in a cleanup amendment to address those issues?
Councilwoman Sepulveda, you recognize.
Yes, the intention is to suspend the rules on third. The procurement board concerns had already been brought to my attention. And so Hannah Zeitlin had already started drafting something, and she had reached out to procurement as well so we could get that language tightened up.
Thank you so very much. Anything else, Councilmember Spain?
No, thank you.
Okay, I have Webb, Toombs, Allen, and Gadd in that order. If anybody else wants to jump in the queue, raise your hand. Council Lady Webb, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm like Spain back here. I had a lot of people reach out with a little bit of concerns. I sent my email to, I don't know if I sent it to Hannah or Margaret today, but I think me and Margaret are having some problems with our email because she's not getting some of them. So my questions didn't get answered. And one of them is, exactly what control will this commission have over sites like, let's just say Metro's working on the Titan Stadium? What kind of control will they have on that down there?
Director Darby, you're recognized.
This
sorry.
this board, based on the language in the legislation, would not apply to the contracts for the Titan Stadium. Metro government proper has to be a party to the contract in order for this board to review those contracts.
Can you repeat that one more time so it soaks in?
Metro government has to be a party to the contract in order for this legislation to apply to the review of that contract. So Metro government is not a party to those contracts. The Sports Authority also is not a direct party to those contracts.
Okay, thank
For
you.
construction.
Thank you.
Be clear on that.
Okay, second question. I'd like to know how codes feels about because I think we were putting it under codes, correct, Ms. Sandra? And I just want to make sure they're on board with it.
Thank you, Councilmember Webb. Do we have someone? We have Will Dot from Codes here that can speak to that.
Thank you, Chair. Will Dodd, Metro Codes. We do have concerns with this as far as our department investigating, I'll say, non-building code issues, workplace safety and things like that that typically fall under state and federal jurisdiction. I know the sponsor mentioned TOSHA and OSHA are typically out there already doing that on job sites. Our inspectors see them out there. So we are concerned about that as far as kind of stepping out of our range with what the state and federal authorities are already working on.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Council Lady Webb, did you have a follow-up to that? Okay, Council Lady Sepulveda wanted to respond as the sponsor.
Thank you, Chair. It would just live under the department. The goal is for it to be a standalone department. Again, we're not going on these sites looking for to see if we find something. We are auditing our contracts. If we happen to find something there, then we will take that to the board. And if the board decides, hey, give them a warning or just go ahead and report it to OSHA and TOSHA, that is what its goal is going to be, right? I did have a conversation with codes earlier today. There's also a concern of just basic space. We know that the Howard building is being worked on right now, which happens to have some potential wage theft violations, just FYI. And they're very cramped. So I talked to General Services to see if potentially it could go under there. The department is not going to be heavily involved in dictating the day-to-day. We will be hiring an executive director who has specific knowledge on this type of work that will be directing the inspectors. All we have to do is find a place to put it, find an office space, find a place to put the money, and that's it. We decided to do it this way because if we were to go ahead and do a standalone department, one, it would be more expensive, right? When we're getting started, we would have to find HR people, we would have to include operating costs, etc. So this is the fastest way to get on the ground now. Again, from the time I started working on this legislation to the time it was filed, a person died. That's what we're talking about. This is every day. Every single day there is something happening on our job sites, and we are not being good stewards of our money if we are not auditing our contracts.
Thank you, Council Lady Sepulveda. Council Lady Webb, any follow-up? All right, Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just got a question from someone representing a contractors group, whether or not there could be representation for contractors on the board, and reading the legislation, the mayor does get to appoint 2 folks, and it's really pretty generic who he can appoint. One person has to have, I don't have the legislation in front of me, but basic experience in workplace safety. So is it the sponsor's intent that covers that contractor representation, or does there need to be some specific language included in that potential amendment on third reading?
Thank you, Vice Chair Toombs. Council Lady Sepulveda.
Thank you, council member. That was the original intent. The mayor's office does get 2 appointees, and the council office also has a nominee they get to appoint. But if the body feels strongly, we could always amend it to add a contractor on there. I'm open to that discussion.
Thank you, Council Member Sepulveda. Council Lady Toombs, any follow-up?
Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Allen. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a great thing to do. We absolutely need to increase safety on our job sites and wage protection as well, although we won't say that. I appreciate the work that the sponsor has done to work with different entities. It sounds like that maybe there are a few more that would like to have input. And I wonder if a 1 meeting deferral, if we can do this quickly and not drag it out, but just a 1 meeting deferral would allow time for the amendments that we've talked about and perhaps any others to be done in an orderly fashion and not have to risk the suspending of the rules becoming a messy thing. So I would, I guess I'll start by asking if the sponsor has any trouble with the 1 meeting deferral before I move for that. But I would like to hear the sponsor's thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilwoman Sepulveda, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I really have no intention of deferring this 1 meeting. I have promised to have a conversation with several groups between now and third reading. I fully intend to suspend the rules to have an amendment on third reading. We are currently tracking this legislation with also budget. We have it in wish list items. And so in keeping those 2 together, I really do not want to defer. Again, when we're talking about a deferral, we're talking about between the period now, potentially having more deaths, potentially having more safety violations, potentially being sued again. I mean, the case that we're currently in, with MMPS is currently in, has it opened where it could be a class action lawsuit for other people to join in. Every day, it's getting harder and harder. We are talking to workers every single day. We have a worker who has a nail who is in his eye. Now he is unable to work. We spent a long time on this. Fully intend to amend on third. So I would prefer if this committee would keep it in track with the budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Sepulveda. Council Lady Allen, did you have a follow-up?
No, I appreciate the effort. I mean, the willingness to have an amendment, and I will support that amendment too.
Thank you, Council Lady Gadd. Then we have Council Lady Quinn Evans Siegel. Then we have Vice Chair Toombs. Council Lady Gadd, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Chair, for allowing me to speak, even though I'm not a part of this committee. And thank you to Council Member Sepulveda for your incredible work and making sure that we save people's lives that do work and contract with Metro government. There are just a couple of thoughts and listening and some of the information provided from procurement and codes, and would love to know if on the procurement side, that I think there was concerns around intent. At that time, I wanted to just lift up, I think intent sounds similar to the whereas clauses. So it sounds like that legal shouldn't have a difficulty in providing any kind of amendment language that would be included in that third amendment, and I look forward to that information. And then in finding a location, I know in an earlier budget hearing, had the privilege to sit in, and council members were lifting up that we have space here in this building
whether that's the jury assembly room or other spaces that could be used for certain other uses. And I think at that time we were referencing the eviction court, those folks needing to find an additional courtroom sometimes. So I would just lift that up. I think there's space in this building that doesn't get used quite often, and so other than a few times a month. And it might be an interesting just look to see how often the jury room gets used. But I think location shouldn't be the ultimate end to this legislation. But that was the couple of thoughts I had. But specifically, when we hear back information getting closer to that amendment that'll be worked on, I would love to see that reconciled comments from procurement. And I think like others, I've had folks reach out that I don't know have reached out directly to the sponsor yet, but they may have in time since they've reached out to me representing construction and other businesses and associations. So some of the earlier in I think it was last week, some folks had reached out to me and I'd asked them if they'd reached out to the sponsor yet, and they had not. So I'm hoping that has been, I'm hoping they have, these folks have reached out directly to you, who's been really willing to work with the entire community. So thank you to the sponsor.
Thank you, Councilmember Gad. Council Lady Quinn Evans-Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I think my only question is if we're looking at doing an amendment on third, it would be helpful to know from the administration if there is a department that they would recommend if the codes department is uncomfortable, general services or some other department that might make sense, but we would need to know that answer pretty soon, mindful that it is tied to budget.
Thank you. Are you requesting an answer from the administration at this moment, or just that they get back to us with a recommendation?
I think getting back to us would probably provide a better recommendation.
Thank you. Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And this is more of a process question. If there's going to be a late filed amendment on third, and it seems like the legislation may need to be tweaked in a couple of places. And I'm a sponsor, a co-sponsor, and in full support of it, but there may need to be a couple of tweaks. So if there are objections to the late filed amendment, then what happens? Like, what's the lead sponsors?
So for clarity, I don't know if the amendment will be late filed or if the suspension is because it would need to be amended on third. So can we, okay. So I'm getting a nod on that. So I don't think the intent is to late file an amendment, but it would require a rule suspension to be able to amend it on third. So, but your question is,
if there's objection,
to the amendment to the suspension of the rules
right.
on the third reading, what is the sponsor's intent? Councilor Sepulveda, would you like to speak to that?
My intent is to count my votes, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Council Lady Toombs, would you like to?
YOLO. I mean, no, I don't have anything else.
Sounds like we're going to be getting a lot of calls between now and the next meeting from outside entities counting votes. So thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Quinn Evans-Siegel, you're recognized.
If we're going to YOLO and we're thinking about backup options, should it get delayed or have to be brought back in a different form if it is funded in the budget but has not passed to be authorized? Could the finance department clarify, is that a valid funding, and what happens to money that is funded if it has not been authorized to be spent?
Thank you, Council Lady Evans-Siegel. We will allow finance to speak to that.
I knew I should have left, right? Thank you for that. So, look, there's a few things happening here, and Councilmember Sepulveda and I have spoken about this a number of times, and I know she's working hard on an amendment to try to be as accommodating as she can. So, I really applaud you for doing that. Look forward to working with you over the next week or two. I don't know a lot about the rules that you're referring to here. I haven't seen those too often. But when it comes to the money, to the extent we want to appropriate something that, we can deploy if we get to the legislation, I think that's something that we could do. So that'd be my short answer to that.
Thank you so very much. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, the current motion on the floor is for an approval. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And we are down to our last two things at almost 8 o'clock. BL 2024-376 Porterfield Bradford. This will need to be approved and re-referred back to committee, y'all. Creates the positions of 311 call center manager, 311 call center supervisor, criminal intelligence analyst 1, criminal intelligence analyst 2, criminal intelligence unit manager, criminal intelligence unit supervisor, family safety advocate, safety advocate senior, helicopter mechanic, helicopter maintenance supervisor, industrial control systems specialist, logistics supervisor, Office of Family Safety assistant, director, police assistant, chief, risk and compliance manager, service and security officer 1, service and security officer 2, waste services assistant director, waste services director, youth case manager 1, youth case manager 2, youth case manager 3, and zoning examiner 2. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay, and the motion is for approval with a re-referral to committee. It has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And the last piece of legislation, BL 2024-380, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, others, approves an agreement between the Nashville Police Activities League and the Metro Nashville Police Department to develop extracurricular activities for at-risk youth. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Council Lady Soror, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair. Where's Chief Gilder?
He's in the back behind the, there he is.
Come on down. Thank you, Chief, and thanks for waiting this late for this one. I wanted to pull it up as part of the overall conversations about what we're doing, about youth violence, about youth prevention and all of that stuff. And I think that the police getting in the community to know the community it serves, I don't have any objection to that. My only thing is that in some communities will be easy for the police to go in and it will work very fine. But there are communities that do not trust the police. Let's put it like that. So are we working with other entities, with community organizations that can help make sure that we're actually reaching this youth? Because I think that when we're talking about youth violence and keeping our community safe, it's going to be, like I said on Saturday, it's going to be this and that and all of it together. And so how do we make sure that the intent of what we're trying to do with this, how do we reach kids that typically you know what I'm talking about, the communities that don't trust the police. And so having the police come and work with kids and do things with kids may not be as effective in some communities. So how are we tackling that, and what are the other agencies that we're working with, or do you think that's not a problem? I just want to hear where you are on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Soror. Deputy Chief Gilder, you are recognized.
Thank you. That's a great question, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the goal here with POW, which is something that's near and dear to Chief Drake's heart, it was work that he did years ago as an officer and a sergeant, and so it's been really important to him to reconstitute this program and get it up and running. But the goal is to get involved in these kids' lives and provide activities, mentorship, interactions, so that we get to know the community and the community gets to know us. So there is the breakdown of that distrust and fear that may exist in some communities. And part of the way that they're doing that, they're working with closely with the Office of Community Outreach and Partnerships. You may be familiar with some of the folks that work over there. And so they are plugged into different segments of the Nashville community and trying to work through them. I would certainly welcome if you have anybody that you think would be a good point of contact for our PAL group. We're constantly looking for folks in the community to work with. So we would certainly welcome that as well.
Council Lady Sawyer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to, uplift that and thank you. And back to what Councilman Berlin was saying before, these are the type of things we want to do to make sure that there's prevention and we're not spending so much time on the back end. But I just want to make sure that the police is also making sure that for areas where we need help, we're plugging into people in the community that can do that. And I will be more than happy to have a conversation offline about that.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sawyer. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Just wanted to remind everyone that our final budget wish list, our final working group, our budget working group will be held this Wednesday down in the jury assembly room at 4 p.m. Please make sure to come out. This is where we will be talking about funding sources from our wish list items, and we will also get some questions answered that some council members have been circulating that we haven't been able to get answered. So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.